Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Hi there, I'm John Riley and I'll be your guide for this episode of MTN Outdoors. We're out here today at Palisade Falls, just south of Bozeman. Now, our first story is going to be one about recovery. It's no secret, I'm an avid fisherman and I truly believe that some of the best fishing opportunities in the world are right here in Montana. But in the Big Hole River, we've seen a dramatic decrease in trout populations. But as John Amy reports, we're starting to see an increase and improvements.
After reporting dramatic decreases in trout numbers in the Big Hole River over the past 5 years, wildlife officials are now encouraged after new data showed a significant increase in juvenile trout numbers.
It was pretty clear, like the first day we were on the river, that was different than what we'd seen in the previous years. Like, we were catching lots of those smaller fish.
While electrofishing last March and April, Fish, Wildlife and Parks officials reported increases in brown and rainbow trout populations from the previous year. Samples were taken on 4 sections of the Big Hole River, which showed significant increases in smaller fish, which they say is a good thing.
Fishermen care about big fish and fisheries biologists care about little fish. In order to make big fish, you have to have small fish.
Last summer, the situation was a near crisis over the dwindling numbers. Governor Greg Gianforte hosted a community meeting last year in Wise River to hear these concerns. Now, the governor is optimistic about the recent numbers, but adds more work needs to be done.
FWP, in conjunction with Montana State University, are going to continue to keep eyes on the ground, keeps the probes in the water, so we determine exactly what's going on, because we want healthy streams with good, strong trout populations.
Though having a high water year is good for trout, biologists say it doesn't fully explain why the population has been struggling.
We still have work to do, so we're not going to take our foot off the gas. These are encouraging numbers, but there's still work to be done.
An angler hoping to take advantage of the Big Hole's famed salmon fly hatch certainly was glad to hear trout numbers appear to be going up.
Fishing's been good this year. It's been a lot better, especially this year, than the last 2 years. Absolutely, especially in the springtime, we've done really well.
Near Wise River, John Amy, MTN News.
Due in part to successful conservation efforts, anglers are encountering the endangered pallid sturgeon more often, confusing them with other types of sturgeons. Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks would like to remind people, if you don't know, let it go.
They're very ancient, they're very prehistoric. Fossil records go back 100 to 200 million years on sturgeon. So really and literally, they're like a living dinosaur.
The pallid sturgeon is one of 3 endangered species in Montana, at one point only having 200 adult fish in the state due to reproduction issues. Hatcheries have been working to grow pallids and have been releasing them into the wild. They are found in larger river systems like the Missouri, Yellowstone, and Milk Rivers. Shovel-nosed sturgeons also can be found here, which are generally smaller than pallids, but that is not always the case. Because hatcheries have been releasing younger pallids into the wild, it's quite possible to find a young pallid and confuse it for a shovel-nose.
Size is not a good indication. You could have a small pallid sturgeon, or you could have a big shovel-nosed sturgeon, and that throws everything off. So what you really have to check is the barbels, which are the whiskers on the fish. The pallid sturgeon has barbels which are different lengths. The inside barbels are usually a little bit shorter. The barbels at the outside of the fish's head are a little bit longer. Shovel-nosed sturgeon, those barbels are kind of in a straight line and they're all about the same length.
If you do come across a sturgeon and recognize it as a pallid, or even if you're unsure, keep it wet, unhook it, and toss it back into the water.
To learn more about pallid sturgeon conservation efforts, check out our website. I'm Anissa Coomer, MTN News.
I'm out here at a bird banding event at Montana Wild, where they catch the birds in nets, band them, find out some more information, and then release them back out into the wild.
Okay, I'm just gonna roll her over. You ready?
Yeah. Oh, there she goes.
We can learn a lot about birds just from looking at them, but when we catch them with nets and have them in the hand, we can learn things that way that we can't learn any other way.
On Friday morning, 10 large bird nets covered Spring Meadow Lake State Park. A crew from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks were scouring the area every 20 minutes to search for signs of entangled birds who had flown into the nets. This American goldfinch was trapped in net 4. After untangling the bird, Christina Harkins, a field coordinator with Montana FWP, takes the bird back to a biologist outpost. Here, the public could watch as scientists banded the bird's leg with an ID number and recorded information such as sex, breeding condition, age, weight, wing length, and more.
Now she's got some bling.
After detailing the essential information, kids waiting in the wings had the chance to release birds back into the wild. The information collected will be submitted to a nationwide database known as MAPS, or Monitoring Avian Productivity and Survival. This information allows them to make comparisons to various regions. This is essential to biologists' understanding of breeding success, says Christina Smucker, Non-Game Bureau Chief for Montana FWP. This is their 3rd season of bird banding.
So we can use that information to do habitat restoration. We can also look at trends over time, are bird populations increasing or decreasing? And we're even tracking things like climate change. Are birds returning sooner? Are they breeding sooner? And how is that changing over time?
Corey Bowditch, Montana Wild Program Manager, says that bringing in the public to view the process allows them to not only see the birds up close, but also the science behind data sets, forming a bond to the nature around them.
And the hope is that they have a stronger connection to birds and their habitats, and when they're making life decisions, maybe they'll think of that little bird they saw here today and help to preserve habitat for their species.
If you're interested in seeing the bird banding for yourself, you can head over to Montana Wild, where they'll be hosting public viewing sessions.
Reporting in Helena, Tom Buchanan, MTN News.
With the warm weather here, it's time to change boots to sandals and get ready to go in the water. Kayaking offers a safe way to get out into nature, but there's certainly some important things that you need to know before getting out on the water. There's many different kinds of PFDs, but these low-cut ones tend to be more comfortable while sitting in a kayak.
Now that we've got our safety equipment, proper shoes, and we're at the river, it's time to get in and have some fun. So let's talk about currents.
Trying to go against the current can be very difficult. You need to make sure you're in decent shape or plan your route accordingly. On the river here in Great Falls, it's recommended that kayakers stay between the 2 bridges. While you're out there, make sure you're kind to wildlife, but take a moment to really check out all the birds and marshes that this area has to offer. One often overlooked benefit of kayaking is it's easy on the body. Personally, I have some pretty bad back injuries, and I'm still able to get out and be active on my kayak.
Now that we're all done for the day, and we've had a successful and safe trip, it's very important to take a moment to appreciate your surroundings on a beautiful summer day like this in Montana. Make sure on your next kayaking trip, you stay safe, follow these rules, and until next time, in Great Falls, I'm James Rowland, MTN News.
Coming up after the break, we learn more about some problematic wildlife encounters that have been happening here in Montana. But first, it's time for some trivia. Now, Montana is home to a number of amazing waterfalls, just like the Palisade Falls here. But do you know what is the largest waterfall by volume in the state? That answer coming up after the break.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome back. So do you know what is the largest waterfall in Montana by volume? Located just off US Route 2 in northwestern Montana, the Kootenai Falls is the largest undammed waterfall in the state and one of the largest waterfalls in the United States by flow rate, with more than 27,000 cubic feet of water passing over the falls each second. Wildlife encounters are common in Montana, but living so close to wildlife can lead to conflicts with those animals. In Helena, there's plentiful urban deer. Bozeman is no stranger to bear encounters, and Gardner has to deal with just about everything. In Billings, though, they've been dealing with some troublesome turkeys who've been causing a ruckus, as MTN's Andrea Lutz reports.
6.
Take a look.
At least 7.
At this trail of turkeys.
And I got out my phone and I videoed it and told my husband, isn't this great? And it was great till they grew up.
2 years ago, this was the site from Carol Van Kuren's front yard.
And they've broken a lattice in the back. They broke our gate, scratch up paint, they tear up roof tiles.
That's when she says the turkeys became trouble.
Some of them weigh as much as 30 pounds.
With their feathers fluffed up, the turkeys trot where they want to trot, stopping traffic in their tracks, even for me. I took this video one rainy morning on 32nd Street.
And if you brake suddenly, you injure human lives.
So Carol, along with the Rimrock Neighborhood Task Force, is flagging the city about the turkey turmoil. But there's no official plan to deal with them.
The city council will tell homeowners how many chickens you can have in your backyard, but they're not limiting how many turkeys are running around here. And the Fish and Game can't manage the turkeys until the city council gives them directive.
I'm probably on the side of the turkey.
Sheila Hancock McKay, who owns a bird rehabilitation habitat in the West End, says word is there's as many as 500 turkeys. The flock brought in the 1950s.
Well, there's a mixed flock, and that's one of the big problems. The very, very best way to get a turkey to leave you alone is to open an umbrella, preferably a black umbrella, because they'll read that as a big bird puffing up.
And while the city tells me it's worked with FWP to share advice with residents on ways to haze the turkeys,
I'm doing a little video.
Carol believes people are still feeding them to keep them around.
It's very discouraging me.
So she says it's time to take action.
Red Lodge has allowed homeowners to use a bow and arrow and get rid of them. I don't really advocate that because in a neighborhood like this, I don't want arrows flying around, people shooting turkeys. So I think they should do what Casper, Wyoming has done, and they let the game wardens go in and actually call the flock.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Well, an Anaconda woman got a huge surprise when she looked out her window and saw a giant black bear getting into this garbage can outside her house located on Yankee Flats, just outside of Anaconda.
I looked out the window and the bear was just laying out there snacking away. I'm still like a little shocked and startled because I knew that they were going to be out here and around me, but I didn't know like that close.
Kayla Hicks says this isn't the first time a bear has rummaged through her garbage, but it's the first time she has seen it do so, and that's why she called Fish, Wildlife, and Parks for help.
If a bear is coming into some type of food source at your house, it's good to secure that attractant now because bears have a really good memory, and so they'll remember, where they got food frequently or when they got food. So it is good to try to think about securing that attractant so that it doesn't become a reoccurring problem.
Brad says issues with bears are usually preventable because they let their noses guide them to the food sources like garbage, bird feeders, and barbecue grills. Bears are also drawn to chickens because their scattered feed and the noise that they make. Kayla now keeps her trash can locked up in a shed until collection day.
I mean, I may not be from here, but I like the wildlife and everything, so I want to learn more on really how to handle the situation.
In Anaconda, Megan Thompson, MTN News.
With the weather warming up, people are getting out and exploring trails. Well, that means you have a higher chance of encountering lots of wildlife. I met with some folks from Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to learn about bear management and safety on the trail.
Jack Austin with the FWP gave a presentation to the public about bear safety.
There's places where the sows will teach their cubs that this is how we live, and it becomes a problem. How to identify the difference between a black bear and a grizzly bear, conflicts that we see out here on the east front of the Rockies, and bear biology and safety around grizzly bears. We give a dozen of these presentations at least every year.
He recommends some simple bear safety solutions.
For safety, traveling in groups, staying loud and noisy so you don't surprise a bear, and carrying bear spray. A group naturally is loud and noisy, a group of people. If it's down to 1 or 2 people, then we really recommend, as best as you can, traveling with the wind at your back and also just yelling out randomly whatever you're thinking of. Sometimes people just yell out, "Hey bear," real loud, and it just prevents startling a bear that's resting in a daybed.
It may surprise some people that bear spray tends to be more effective than firearms.
Well, I am an advocate for bringing all the tools in the toolbox, but most people out in the woods are not really probably trained and effective enough with a firearm to be to be very accurate on a charging bear. So the benefit of bear spray is it puts out a great big cloud and the bear runs right into it. Bear spray is very, very effective. 90+% of the time, the bear never even made contact with the person when they used bear spray.
With bear populations recovering, they're expanding their range.
Bears are expanding out of the east front of the Rockies to the east, more into the prairies. It's a little less likely the further east you go. The bear density gets higher as you get closer to the mountain front, but there's you never want to be unprepared.
In Ulm, I'm James Rowan, MTN News.
Coming up after the break, we see how veterans are cleaning up Montana waterways and learn more about some unique paper briquettes you can pick up in Montana for your next camping trip.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Montana's waterways are a key part of the Treasure State, both for recreation and for infrastructure. MTN's James Rollin reports that veterans are working to make sure that those waterways are clean and stay there for future generations.
Divers from Underwater Soldiers, a local nonprofit, gathered at Giant Springs to do a unique type of cleanup.
So what we're doing is we're taking out the invasive species of weeds and stuff like that that's going to be clogging up the spring all summer.
We scuba dove in Giant Springs to remove the invasive plant species, some of the garbage that gets tossed in there from people, and just generally cleaned up the springs so that when people visit here, it looks good and people are able to enjoy it.
The divers were able to experience a part of the springs that few ever get to see.
So we saw 2 massive brown trout. I mean, those guys had to have been this big down there. We also got to see the source of the Giant Springs, which was really beautiful because you could see the fresh water pushing the sand up and displacing it. And in several places, it would actually force you up to the surface of the water. There was so much pressure coming out of the ground.
The work done by Underwater Soldiers has a direct impact on the community.
Giant Springs is a state park, and a lot of people, everybody around us has come down here to enjoy this place, to spend time in the sun and spend time with their friends and their family, and we want to try to maintain the integrity of the water, make sure that it's a good environment for the species that live here, and make sure that it looks attractive and it's clean so that everybody can come and enjoy it.
It's not just the park getting the benefit. The cleanup is part of a veteran therapy program.
Underwater Soldiers is a nonprofit organization that aims to help military veterans deal with symptoms of PTSD and just that lack of camaraderie that some guys can feel when they're freshly separated from the military. So it's just a bunch of military veterans getting together, scuba diving, obviously, but really just supporting each other and doing something that we all love.
With the springs freshly cleaned, the public are encouraged to visit the park, as well as the many other natural wonders that our state has.
Just encourage people to get out. The summer's upon us. There are mountains, there are rivers, there's lots to do here in Montana, and it's out there just to go get it.
In Great Falls, I'm James Rowland, MTN News.
It's camping season, and my buddy York over here is ready to burn on some fire pits. Obviously, this isn't a real skull. It's made from paper, wax, and a ton of tender love and care by one Billings native.
His poor little nose is wrinkly.
Construction worker, cabinet maker, and photographer are just a few of Eric Larson's former job titles.
You know, my mom always told us, she says, you got to have a creative outlet. You know, when you get bored, just try to be creative, make something, do stuff.
Eric may now live in Powell, Wyoming, miles away from his hometown of Billings.
Okay.
But he's still creating.
This is office copy paper.
This is something he picked up 6 years ago during his stint as a custodian in Powell's public schools.
I ended up with a lot of excess paper, and I thought there's got to be a use for this.
He started researching paper briquettes.
I started making these. And this is just compacted paper and sawdust.
Inspiration struck when Eric placed the briquette on a campfire.
I thought, ooh, wouldn't that be great if I could put a skull in there or something like that, you know? Something that would, so it would come out the eyes.
It's taken him years to perfect the process.
I can't really produce a lot because it takes a long time.
From soaking the paper.
That's just saran wrap.
To blending it up.
This is about the consistency of oatmeal.
Compacting the mixture into a mold while it spins and drains in an old washing machine.
And then this goes on.
Which will take 5 days to dry out.
Then I have to drill holes in them and then dunk them in the wax, and by that point then I'm done, and then I can bag them and wrap them.
Sold at $20 a skull.
They'll burn over 2 hours.
Eric's had buyers in nearly every single state across the nation.
I actually enjoy doing it. It's fun.
Something a little different for your summer season of fun.
I don't know why, it always comes out blue. I'm kind of a MacGyver, so I've worked my way through it because it's cool.
In Powell, Alina Howder, MTN News.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm John Riley. Thanks so much for joining us. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch you next time.